All right, y'all. So I hope you all have had a good day so far. And I hate to interrupt your day like this, but I hope it's going smooth so far. There are a couple of things that I wanted to touch on with all the teachers by content. As you already know, STAR is a big initiative that we've already kind of started on and pushed out and discussed. But I wanted to circle back around and kind of hit on some more specific elements and just really talk and dive in and see what you're comfortable with, what needs to be done, what kind of help we need, all those types of things. So just to recap from last time, I did tell you why STAR is still important. I know that we are not graded the same as traditional school districts. However, we do use testing as a means of measuring growth. We still have to show, that we are closing gaps. So we may not be accountable at a state level, but we also are accountable at a federal level. All of those things being said, it doesn't matter. We still have a duty to provide all the tools that we can for our students to be successful, no matter what. So, as far as STAR Prep, I remember the last time we spoke, we talked about new implementations going forward as far as including STAR prep in your everyday processes. And one of the things that I did push out was to make one of your class periods dedicated to STAR every day. It didn't matter which period it was, and to break it up into like a breakout session type situation. So I want to get some feedback on that point to see how that's been going. And I really want you to be transparent with me. If it hasn't been working out for the sake of time, for the sake of participation, for the sake of lack of resources, I really need us to dive into that now so that I can try to see if we can close some gaps with that. So, Ms. Kanise, I'll let you go first. If you want to provide a little feedback for me, that'll be great.
It's been going well. One of the things that I've done is you can search. There's like this website that has Jeopardy games, and they have a lot of star practice games, and it becomes competitive. So they like that. I guess what's in my mind right now is it seems like a lot because they're doing the Edgenuity Star class that we're required to do plus
Mm-hmm.
this. So I just want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I'm doing the right thing by doing both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, we're attacking STAR from as many. We're attacking implementation of prep from any angle that we can. So too much is can be considered not enough. So no, you're not overkilling it because it's different ways of approaching it. So how are your students responding to the games?
They like the games. Now, when I'm giving them actual like star questions, like yesterday, I had them depending on what grade they're in or what they're testing for. I had them answer some questions just so I can kind of see where they are. There was like some grumbles and gripes, and two of them just put down answers, but the rest of them did well. So I mean, I would say overall, like it's as good as you can expect it to be.
Okay. Now my question, just because I'm not looking at it, um, over here, what me and Miss Marple and anybody else we've been working on is how to group the kids. So right now, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, Miss Marple, we have two eighth graders, we have one ninth grader, we have one seventh grader, and then we have one no, yes, and then we have said go ahead.
Sorry. And then we have two 11th graders.
Thank you. That would be Victoria Cassie, right? Okay. So right now, what she's doing with her start time, she's breaking them in pairs as she can, and then working with the individuals as she can. How do your groups look over there, Miss Kenise?
So I've got one pair, but the rest are all separate. So
Okay.
I have two that are 11th grade.
Hmm.
So they're together, but then everybody else is in a different grade. So, I mean, which is not that bad. It's only 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Okay. So how have your is the workshop model working? Like, are you able to dedicate time to each grade leveling content?
I would say that I need to work more on doing that. Like for example, if let's say ELA, if they have an ELA test, and for the most part, other than one student, my students are going to be doing retakes at some point. So like ELA, it may not be broken by grade. I may do it all together because despite what grade they're testing for, they're all lower than what they're supposed to be. So I
course.
feel like I can address them at a lower grade level to try to build them up to where they need to be. So in that case, I've just grouped them all together. But like when it comes to history, I'm able to separate it that way.
Okay, so totally understand what you're saying with the ELA piece because we know that our kids are not on level. But just for the sake of exposure purposes, what do you need to be able to give them some exposure to their individual content before we hit the test time? Do you
Well, I
need
print
extra set of hands? Like, what do you think you need?
no, I print what I did is I printed the like the release star test. And so their
Mm-hmm.
exposure is like when I give them something just to I'll give them a few questions, maybe like one story with the 5 questions or however
Right.
many questions that go with it. I do it on their grade level. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're working like together on a game or as a group, then I'm kind of putting it all together.
Okay, I see. So they are hitting their individual content, but they're just going over maybe some concepts as a group.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Miss Marble, as far as the workshop model and being able to devote time to your various grade levels, how's that going for you?
I think it's going pretty well. Of course, the kids grumble and complain about it every day, but that's just students in general. So the way I do it is like Ms. Coleman said, I do break them down. The two 11th graders, they work independently, but if they're working independently, then I put my 7th grader over there to my table with me and I work with him or her at the table one-on-one and dedicate that full at least a full class period while the other kids are doing their individual um, star prep. Once they finish with their star prep, if they finish, then they can do a freckle assignment, which freckle also geared towards star. Um, we have vocabulary words. What I have started doing this week was pulling something from each uh, previously star release
Mhm.
dates. So and that's what they warm up is. So like say on Monday, I think I had ELA on Monday, so I would get a passage. Even though it is a long passage, we would try to read that passage together as the warm up, and then we'll answer the questions like that for maybe the 10th grader, and then we'll do the next day 11th grade, and then the next day so on and so on. But I'll pull each one for each grade level for the warm up. So that's the warm up practice. I have been enhancing the vocabulary using the Freya model with the
Mhm.
students because a lot of times, for me too, if you don't know the concept, if you don't know that word, then you don't know what you're looking for.
Mhm.
So I've been working with the vocabulary a little more, and I think it's been beneficial, especially for two of my students I know. They have been grasping some common, like compare and contrast, like something like, well, what is compare and contrast? Which we went over that a long time ago, but just try to keep it fresh on their brain. Well, this is what comparison mean, and this is what contrast mean. So I think it's beneficial though for them. I like the workshop model actually. I'm
Okay.
just looking for some new games, which I think Miss Coleman sent out some games. I believe
We're
it was
gonna,
on
yeah,
yesterday.
we're definitely, I'm about to show you some things and then show you maybe how to find some more things, but I'm gonna show you some things that were really beneficial to me. I want to circle back around to something you just said, Miss Marble, the vocabulary. I cannot stress enough how our students can know the content and they know the way you have presented it to them and the way they processed it. But when they get to that standardized model of testing, they don't even know how to unlock that knowledge because they don't understand what they're reading. Driving vocabulary is going to help out a lot. I'll never forget literally during a testing time, I was administering I think it was an ELC test, and a kid literally yells, "Miss, Miss," and I'm just like, "What's going on?" And he says, "We had this. This was our word of the day. I believe the word was simultaneous. Otherwise, would he have skipped over that or not known what that word meant? But anyway, that prior knowledge and unlocking that gave him the boost that he needed to be able to feel like he could understand the question. Vocabulary and dictionary skills, pushing them to help understand for themselves what they are reading, they're not going to understand every word. That's just reality. But if we could set the tone in the classroom for if you don't understand, it's okay. This is how you get to find out. And if that becomes a routine, I cannot stress to you how much that's going to help out. So dictionary skills in the classroom. Prior to this year, we actually had a vocabulary initiative across the district. Word walls were required. vocabulary was a huge deal across continents. We got away from that, but I'm not going to tell you it's still not helpful just because it's not a requirement. Okay, so just and that also kind of coincides with me pushing the unreleased test and using the actual built-in I wish I had a Chromebook. The actual built-in STAAR test program that's on the Chromebooks. They need to see what these questions look like. They need to understand the format, some of the terminologies. Otherwise, you already know how they're going to react. They're literally going to pull your card, my card, the district card, everybody's card. They're going to act like they've never been in the classroom a day in their life. So exposure, exposure, exposure. Okay, so workshop model going good. Let's see. So I think this was number 2 that I did this week. I decided to do the knowledge checks every Thursday, and all I did was pull the 2022 tests, and I just spliced them. Here at ACH, Ms. Kenise, my focus has been on math to get them some more exposure to math concepts. I did send you the test last week to disperse it however you like. Um, this week was number 2. I think I gave you yours yesterday, Miss Marvel. And one thing, Miss Kenise, that we had discussed, me and Miss Marvel had talked about was the kids' resistance to the test or testing situations. Their stamina is not strong for a myriad of reasons. We know that. Sit and get is not our kids. So to prepare them for such a hefty test, for one, their stamina has to be built. So putting them in mock testing situations is going to be beneficial. Teachers have to set the tone for what we expect. So, Ms. Marvel, can you talk a little bit about some of the pushback you've been getting from trying to get them to do the knowledge checks?
Sure, excuse me. I have some I have some that will sit there and do the knowledge check. I have some that when you give them the knowledge check, they just get it and they say they read it, but they're not reading it. They just get it in circle, 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 circle. And you can, I mean, when your student's not reading. I have some to say, man, it's bust. Some refusals, a lot of refusals. Um, but I gave them a word. Last week we had a word, perseverance. That was our word last week. So I'm trying to um, get a word every week for them because I did tell them that, you with the STAAR test, you get up to 4 hours to complete a STAAR test. Are you going to take the whole 4 hours? Probably not. But you need to at least take 1 full hour, just like when they're doing their read learn test. You don't get an accurate test in 15 minutes, you at least need 45 to 55 minutes, maybe even an hour for an accurate test. I said, so let's try to use let's try to use the way we do our read learn test. Let's try to use it as the STAAR test. So this week when we did it, it went a little better, maybe because the kids that wasn't pushing back wasn't here, but it did go a little bit better. And like I said, I just try to ask them to persevere because a lot of times I don't want to persevere, but I give them some examples of how I persevered through something and I overcame and it works.
Mhm. I've seen some really good participation in her classroom. I've seen days where they don't want to. On the days that I used to experience in the classroom where they didn't want to, first of all, I am an incentive teacher. I will buy the kids and I will buy a t-shirt that says that. I totally believe in it. Because as an adult, if you incentivize me, I feel more driven. So, and I'm not telling y'all to go buy anything, and I don't take that as a directive or anything. But even free incentives that your kids like, or if you know something that I could go do and provide for you to go ahead and make those hard days a little smoother, they know when they're going to get something, they're more driven. And also, they don't even realize that their stamina is being trained. That's why I start incentivizing. I'll stop saying buying kids. I start incentivizing from the very beginning. When I want something, we're gonna work together to get what's beneficial for you anyway. Um, it is not always easy to incentivize our kids because sometimes their behavior does not directly correlate to them receiving something, but you lose the battle to win the war. Okay. So incentives can be something that we implement to give them a little bit more push, a little bit more stamina to finish those things because they have to see those questions. They have to, get there. Another thing that I've observed Ms. Marble doing is the ones that can work in pairs, she pairs them to kind of alleviate the rigor and the stress of having to take that whole chunk. Um, and implementing breaks during a testing period is gonna work because during STAAR they can take as many breaks as they want to. That's gonna work out a lot. I was gonna ask you something, Miss Kenise. As far as when you give them the questions on their individual levels, how many? You said you're only giving them about 5 in one story at a time.
For the reading, yes. Now for
Yes.
history, it's not as strenuous, so I gave
No.
10 for that.
Okay. Do you think that you could get to a place where you can increase what you're giving them
Yes,
in the
definitely.
time?
Yes.
Okay, good. So have either one of you explored the testing system? I'm sorry, I can't recall the name of it. We're at the bottom of the. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a note for that to be a goal next week to at least spend an hour. I don't care how you break that up, but at least an hour on the system. Now, when they access one of those release tests, you can actually take it and do the question. But the biggest initial goal is for them to be able to use the functionality of the program using the highlighting tool. If they have speech to text, things like that, they need to become familiar with how to use it because on test day, I can't tell you how many kids sit there and blink, especially our ELC kids that have to write that essay when they get that text box and then they don't know what's going on and we train them on paper, some of them don't transfer well. So next week, at least 60 minutes using the testing program. It could be 30 and 30, it could be 20 at a time. You know your kids implement it however you want to. So that's one goal to use that system.
Actually, I had that on my agenda for tomorrow.
Okay, cool. If you start tomorrow, that'll be good too. Okay, we've covered that. Okay, so I will have to say that Miss Marvel totally stumped me about a week ago. And I will humble myself before both of you and tell you she totally stumped me. Basically, whenever I pushed out this STAR initiative, I'm giving you the goal. I'm giving you the what, okay? But what I didn't never thought, I truly didn't think in depth about, I didn't give you the how. Because in my mind, my how and your how are going to be different. We're going to probably end up, in the same location, but you might jog and I'm not jogging, so I'll walk. But in the event that you don't know how to get there, how can I help you as a support to reach the goal? So basically, how do we make this STAR stuff engaging? How do we make it fun? How do we make it to where they're not refusing? So there were a couple of things that I used to do, and we don't have that long to go. Um, Miss Kanice already talked about games. When you said Jeopardy, are you using my Jeopardy labs?
I believe so. I could look it up to be certain, but yes, I believe so.
Mhm.
And there's also, if you go to Teachers Pay Teachers, there's some Jeopardy games on there
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah. So I used to use my Jeopardy labs. I sent you an email with 2 links yesterday. So there were 2 games that used to save my life. Okay. One of them, now remember I taught all boys. So the boys named the game. I truly kind of made this game up to fit my classroom environment. So one of them, I'll share my screen. Just a minute. And it's funny because I remember this game because I used it every year, but I literally had to go jog my memory back to like 2015, 2016. So imagine trying to find something on the internet from that time period. So I did like a little dance when I actually found it. Okay, please let me know when you can see my screen because I have like 3. So I want to make sure you see the right one. Okay, you see this how to play over here? Okay, great. So basically, we called this rocket ship battle. I don't know. I don't remember. But when I say that when Mickey was on campus or whoever was on campus, people would literally be coming down the hallway to my classroom to see what's going on because the boys will be hyped. Okay. So this actual game was designed, as you can see, for third through fifth grade. But like they say, don't reinvent the wheel. You can make almost anything fit your classroom. And then, as you already know, our kids are not on level anyway. So they still have some basic needs that haven't been met, which will cause them to be enthused by this game. All right. So here we have different rocket ships to represent different teams. At the time, I was blessed with a laminator, so I did laminate this stuff, and I would put them on my whiteboard, separate them, space them out. So I would, and then also please use as a disclaimer at this particular time, I had one grade level in content per class period. Okay. So you're definitely going to have to remix this. Like my first period class was always English 2, 10th grade. So that makes this a whole lot easier, but it can be done in the classroom. I thought it out yesterday. So each team gets a rocket ship. Okay. And these are shields. I just made several copies of these banana gray looking things. Every team got X amount of shields. That would be up to you, the teacher, to provide them with shields. Okay, you do need a dice. I used to have a very large jumbo green dice. Okay. So what I would do is get 10 questions, like Charlotte said, a passage in 10 questions, or revising and editing, whatever, just a short amount of questions. And I would make it based on speed for them to work together in small groups or teams to answer the question. They had to get their answer. Then team one, team two, however many teams I had, they would get to roll this dice if the answer was correct. Okay. Whoever got the answer was correct. Correct. Sorry. According to what number the dice rolled, you got to do these things to your opponent, which makes it super competitive. It's just an aesthetic game. There, sometimes there was incentive. There's sometimes there wasn't, but they really enjoyed it. Like you get to take something from the other team. Um, if you roll a three, you don't get to take any shields. Anyway, I really wish I had a video from whenever I was playing this. Because y'all, we used to rock the house, and it was literally this simple game that I found on the internet, and they would ask me to play it, and I would put my star questions to it, and it would go so well. These game sheets, I don't worry about that. But printing the shields and just making each team have a visual of themselves. And then also I can't stress enough, it's all about the energy that the teacher provides. If you push it out as something fun, if you make it non-negotiable, if you make it important, the kids will feed off of that and they will think it's important. Okay, that's one game. And then the other game that used to save my life, I put it in an email. I'm going to talk about the writing before we get off. The other game that I really liked was Trash Ball. Are you both familiar with Trash Ball? Now, I used to use this with every unit, every test, every quiz, every concept I taught. That was one of my informal assessments. So basically, with Trash Ball, there's literally a piece of trash, like you ball up some paper and you put your trash can. I used to have 2 and a 4-point line, and they used to come outside of their desks to the area that the goal or the trash can was. If you got it correct, every team that got it correct got a chance to shoot. If you made it from the 2 or the 4-point line, you got those points. If you lose, you still get 1 point for getting it right. It's competitive. You can put literally any type of content with it. I taught figurative language with it. I did STAAR test prep with it. It's just an idea of a game. I did put that video in the email that was sent to you yesterday. Okay. So those are a couple of games. And outside of this meeting, if you need me to come help you put it together or explain it in a different way, I can definitely do that. I just wanted to present you with 2 ways that I found were fun that I used in my class. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears from games. We talked about the workshop model. Okay, now this is really important to me and important in general. As you know, our kids are not writers. Okay. We do good to get them coming in writing sentences, like a sentence. And how do you grow them from sentence writing to paragraph writing to essay writing? It is very hard to take a 15-year-old ninth grader who cannot compose 2 complete sentences and have them write an expository essay. Writing has to be something that's implemented in class all year, to be honest. Because how do you build? You have to start with the building blocks. I know Miss Marble does a lot of journal writing. Miss Kenise, do you do journal writing in your classroom?
We do writing, but not journal writing. No,
Okay.
it kind of goes by
Um,
an assignment. Like some
oh,
assignments have writing with it.
okay. That would be most of my warm up besides the word of the day, or I would pair it with a word of the day just to get their stamina used to writing. And then they actually had to show it to me before they could turn it in, or you didn't get credit for it. So not only were we doing vocabulary writing every day, we also had revising and editing because I was going to walk through it with you very quickly before you could even turn it in. So they got used to editing their own work, and it got better and better as the year would progress. So anyway, that's one thing that they need is help with writing. Our Achieve 3000 program that we have to use. That thought question will save your life when helping them get to the writing point that they need to be. Actually following a prompt and how to break that prompt down to answer all required parts of the prompt, that's going to be needed. Okay. This is the last thing I want to touch on. Our ELC kids, you already know they have to take the writing portion of the STAAR, the essay portion. Back in our ELA cohort meeting, I did do a presentation on this, and I did drop these templates in the ELA Google Classroom. But I just want to hit it again because what I'm finding is if, like I just said, they can't go from not writing to writing an essay. But an important step before you even get there, I'm really confident when I say this. If you can plan it, you can write it. So what I did was I started training my kids on how to basically attack a writing prompt. I'll show you here. I'll just show you, of course, you know what their writing prompts look like. I did training sessions on a daily, sometimes or weekly, sometimes daily basis on how to break down a writing prompt. Back in paper days, what I would have them do is step one, let's try to see what type of essay we're even writing. English 1 is always going to be expository. English 2 is going to be argumentative. Used to be persuasive, but now they call it argumentative every year. So I would say, call attention to what type of essay you're writing. They would have to highlight that. We will read the following quote, blah, 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 get your brain going. Then I would have my kids put an X on it. Because if they were advanced where I needed them to be, they could actually use that quote. But we know where our kids are. We don't want to overwhelm them. So I would have them physically put an X on it. Okay, successful people, blah, blah, blah. Think carefully about this statement. I would literally pause them and prompt them to process what they just read. Okay, move on. Write an essay. This is what I would call the action statement. They were going to circle these. So far, we've called attention to this. Just as a disclaimer, they knew what type of outline that they would use to plan an expository essay. So now they already know which direction they're going in. I'm just telling, or I'm explaining. Let's get rid of all this extra stuff. Let's think about this. Let's call our attention to what we're actually going to do. This is the action statement. Then we would go through these steps and they would number them or ABC them or whatever. So their focus would be here. This I would turn into a thesis. They would have to actually answer the question. Think carefully about this statement. Basically, I turned this document into a set of short steps. This led right over here to that. Sorry, hold on. That's for English 2. This is the one we wanted. Can y'all see that? Okay. I took English 1 and tied them to this because it's the most simplistic outline that I found. Okay. I put this in the Google Classroom so you can see it, but just all in all, I'm not going to go through it again because y'all did sit through it, in the ELA cohort. But if you can train them to fill this out according to the wherever it went, according to the prompt alone, they have a fighting chance. If they can plan it, they can write it. And then when they look at this, I used to tell my kids all the time, these are your paragraphs. If you fill this out, you've basically written the essay. All you have to do is add meat and potatoes. But it takes training them to get to that point. So if they see here, if this is the English 2 test and they see persuasion and they do the exact same thing, and then it goes to this one. This is the persuasive outline I would train them on. I would make that like a weekly assignment. If they could get a prompt, look at it, like this past knowledge check that I just gave Miss Marble, there was a writing prompt on it. Don't want the kids to write the essay. I want them to start just by planning out the essay, and then we'll get to the essay. My kids had written so many essays guided by me that by the time it was time to take the test, if they couldn't do anything else, they could write. Because we had done it so many times, it just became routine. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. Did I cut it off? Okay, good. All right, so that was a lot to take in. We dissected a lot. I do want to say I appreciate what you are attempting to do as far as implementation of STAAR techniques and making sure that's a big focus. Do you have any questions? Did you find anything I provided you with today useful? And if you have any questions about what I showed you, please let me know now or later. Do you have anything that you have right now? Any questions right now? Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I'll be checking in with you both. If you need anything, I'll be there to help you in any way I can. All right. Thank you.